Ciao tutti, it's Lisa here, and I'm going to give you the 411 on everything you need to know about renting cars in Italy. And whether you're seeing this live or after, feel free to plug in your questions. I'll be checking them out here while I'm doing this, and we'll try to answer everything I can for you. And just a big warm welcome to any of our new members. We've been getting a lot of sign-ups lately, so all is good. I thought I'd give you my hacks of renting cars because about 2 years ago I no longer had a car. I got it demolished, and so I've been a pretty pro car renter here in Italy. And there's so many tricks that they pull on you, and there's so many things that can go wrong, and and also potentially ruin a trip. So here I am to try to cover all those bases. So the first thing is, when you're renting a car, I'm sure this is pretty worldwide, but it's very difficult, especially in high season, to make sure that the car you have rented is actually there and available on the lot. So what happens there? You rent, just happened to me recently. I rent a Fiat 500 XL, right? Want lots of space, gonna have a few passengers. And you get there and they're, nope, sorry, we don't have that car. We can give you something really small. And no, we're not gonna give you a credit on the difference in amount. So that's pretty standard. It's also very annoying. I know families that rented, a 7-passenger car, automatic, and got there and there was no car for them, and they ended up having to rent 2 tiny cars to even just fit their luggage. So this is a big issue. You might want to try to call and make sure, but they won't. They'll tell you your car is going to be there, no problem. So that's, especially in high season, is a huge issue. When it comes to automatic transmissions, especially for people coming from the States, they're a lot more plentiful. So in the old days, there was like 1 out of their whole lot. Now, more and more and more people, now that they figure out that it stinks to have a stick shift when you're driving in a city and sitting in traffic, that it's so much easier to drive automatic. So you can get an automatic car pretty relatively easily. So those are 2 main things out of the way. So the other thing you need, especially if you're coming from the States, is your international driver's license. You get a copy of one of those at a AAA. If you're going to add a driver, generally they might need one too. Half the rental car places look at your international driver license. The other half say, no, you just need it on you. And the other half say they won't rent it to you unless you have it. So I've been caught up in all 3 situations. If you get stopped by the police, your international driver's license basically just says it in Italian or in any other language. But they become quite sticklers about that nowadays. So before you start, make sure you've got your international driver's license as well. And you need both pieces. You will always need your American or British driver's license and that international one when you're renting. So the next thing that you might want to know is, I tend to just rent cars from rentalcar.com. I like it. It's efficient. They make some changes every once in a while to the platform, so it gets a little wonky. And sometimes they seduce you into thinking that you're getting the best deal, right? Oh, 25 people are looking at this car right now. Don't buy that. I have found that I do price shop. I mean, some people go with Kayak and other places. I would say that I've gotten pretty good deals if you rent a car when you're buying your plane ticket. Sometimes the plane companies are offering those special rates, and if you can live with those, that's fabulous. So go for it. I price shop around rental cars, and in the old days you could choose Rome as your city, and then you would get all of the different listings. Nowadays you kind of have to select Rome airports or Rome city or Rome train stations, and you kind of have to see. Generally speaking, if you rent from an airport, it's less expensive, but if you're in Rome and you're already like at your hotel and you're going to leave town and get a car from the airport, that'll add a taxi fare or your train to the airport, which is about €8 per person, to your rental car fee. So sometimes it just doesn't make sense. As a personal recommendation, it's much more advised to rent from outside your city centers. So the Pisa airport is some place that I love to rent cars from because they are always, it's just easier to get there, easier to fly in and out of, easier to catch a train, super easy to drive around. I love Pisa airport car rentals. Another airport is Florence. They now have trams that go straight from the train station or the center of Florence to the airport. But you still have to haul luggage across different roadways and things like that. The taxis are fabulous just to take to the Florence airport. It's €20. It's worth every dime, and rather than the tram. But it just depends on your budget. And I have to say that kids love trams, kids love trains, so they might not want to just hop in a taxi and get to that airport. But anyway, at the airport you get in and out of the city quite quickly. Driving inside towns in Italy can get very difficult, and especially in Florence, almost every tourist ends up with a €70, €80, €100 fines going in and out from their hotels or whatever with a rental car. So I'll do another live video probably next Friday on the problems of why that is, but I just call it a tourist tax, and that's pretty much how they're dealing with this. They pretend, for example, in Rome, that you don't have a hotel right in the city center, and so you drive in with your rental car, and now you're getting hit with a fine. So I just think it's a lot easier to leave those cars at the airports or pick them up when you arrive, and so on. So one thing I'd like to say about the rental cars, if you're having a plane coming in at 11, obviously you need to wait for your luggage and go through customs, and you want to make your rental car for 12. Make it as late as you possibly can. If you get there a little early, not a problem. But once you get to your desk, the rental car desk, they will, basically the timing of your car rental starts at the time that you have booked, not the time that you're getting the car. So if your plane is late, or if you get to the rental car desk and you have to wait an hour while other people are getting their cars, and this has happened to me even 2 hours, the clock is ticking. They say, your rental has started at 11 a.m. and not 1 p.m. when you're picking up your car, actually. Same thing when you return it. If you're returning the car, you've left the lot at 1 p.m., double check your contract, because it's going to say probably 11 a.m. return. And I've had plenty of arguments about this. Some companies kind of give you that wiggle room. Some companies will schedule the rental from the time you pick it up. But I would say for the most part, if you're going through a rentalcars.com or Kayak, they try to hit you up with every sort of fee they can possibly add on to your rental. So you're going to want to watch the time. You get about an hour wiggle room when you return on some places. Again, oftentimes it's if you rent directly from the company versus going through an aggregator. And I will also tell you that when it comes to choosing a car, I sometimes look on rental cars, and then I sometimes go to the actual sites, the Avis or the Sixt, it's Sixt, or my favorite these days is Gold Car. I'm a big fan of Gold Car, although sometimes they bother me, as they all do. But basically, when you go directly to their site and book, I find sometimes I get much better deals. Right now I have a month-long rental from Gold Car. I like Gold Car because their fleet is very new. So I like having all those new cars. And so they'll treat you better if you have not gone through a low-cost aggregator. So there's something to be said for that. Just better customer service and a few more perks. I don't tend to buy the insurance, or when I do, I tend to buy it at the desk. Some places charge you way more if you buy it right at the desk. Some will give you a deal because they really want to sell you something. So I do. Last few rentals I've gotten, I've actually bought the insurance right at the desk and saved money that way. So that's the deal on the insurance and the timing and so on. So a couple other hacks here. I see Miss Linda is watching. So she'll know based on our personal experience that never drive the car off the lot with any lights shining. And religiously, you will be told, it's no big deal. It's a short circuit. That light is always on. Just ignore it. It's nothing. Yeah, we know it. Maybe the tires need filling and you have to fill them up. I do not accept those cars anymore. They have this thing here in the gas tanks called Adi Blue. It's a special chemical. If it runs low, your Adi Blue basically will shut down your engine, as happened to me and Linda on a mountain pass that was a one-way mountain pass in the middle of Austria. So I always say to them, I get in the car, I check it out. You check for the damages, you check all of that, fine, but you really need to also check that any lights are shining, and just don't buy their stuff. Ask them for a new car. In high season, it will be hard pressed to get a new car because they'll say they're all taken and so on. So this is something that is pretty darn regular, and it's kind of annoying. A new thing that they're doing as well, I've noticed it's a new trend, is that they now no longer give you a full tank of gas. And my whole thing about renting cars all the time is I love showing up in a parking lot and getting a new tank of gas, filled a full tank of gas. So basically what they're doing now is they give you the gas tank random filled with gas. My point is if they can clean your car, and they have to do special cleaning for COVID, they can clean your car. They can also give your car gas, but they don't. And I will actually ask for another car that's not full, as I just did the last time. Did I get the same car? No, I got a worse car. But they always say, well, just return it 3/4 of the way, or just return it half tank full. I always tell them I'm not a gas tank expert, and I don't know how much in euro is going to fill my tank halfway or 3/4. And I want to avoid that at all times. So I demand a full tank. And they always say, of course it's full, and you get in the car and it's never full. So this is their new way to get more money out of you because of everybody using rentalcars.com and so on. So you want to make sure all the damages are listed. Sometimes they'll give you a list and they'll say, oh, but all the damages are on the thing. No. And in some cases, they no longer give you spare tires. And I guess it's because it's easy to repair. They give you some repair kit on a spare tire. I've never had this happen, but I do know, like in Sicily and some of the horror stories, you open the trunk and make sure your spare is in there, or they'll tell you, no, we don't give a spare, we just give you this little repair kit. You know, and again, that's another good reason for getting the insurance, because then you can call road service right away. In all my years of renting cars, I've never ever had a flat or any use of the spare. But what has happened at, let's say, more nefarious dealers down in, for example, in Sicily, they'll say, oh, your tire is missing. And you never check to even see that there wasn't one in there, and they charge you $150 for that. You can dispute it with your credit card company, but that's really one of the downsides. So another thing that they do is they always ask you casually, so where are you going with this car? And obviously you've done the math on knowing how many kilometers and so on. But if you happen to say another country, like you're renting in Milan or you're renting in Venice and you want to go to Slovenia for the day, or you want to go to Austria, or as what happened to me this summer, I went to France. I said, well, I'm going to France. And they will charge you an extra fee for no apparent reason. So it cost me an extra €90, even though I was literally going just across the Italian border. And another thing just to know, when you're going into Switzerland with a rental car, they don't have the highway toll pass. So you will be forced to buy a 1 year's highway toll pass at about something like $80 or $90 just to bring that car into Switzerland on the highways. So there's all these little extra charges that really rack up when you're doing a rental. Sometimes I rent the car and then re-rent another car in Switzerland rather than pay that fee. So there's that. And if you're renting a car from Venice, again, Mestre, which is about a 10-minute train ride from Venice, has a ton of car rental places right there, right from this train station or just in the little nearby. And again, it's just a heck of a lot easier to get out of towns without having to drive around through them. I mean, you can't drive in Venice anyway, but just even the hassle of storing your car in a parking garage in Venice for 3-4 days will, again, run you another $200 on top of your rental. So sometimes when you have a rental car issue, or you're deciding at the last minute, you didn't know what to rent, I have found that there are also some places that do not show up on the screen, like rentalcars.com. If you're at a train station, there's 3 or 4 like fly-by-night places, and sometimes they're pretty expensive for last-minute rentals, but they will save the day. Now, I came into Catania one day, and they had no rental cars in all of Sicily, and in fact, Sicily is a huge issue in the summer. For rental cars, they have none. None of the big companies will have cars for you unless you reserve well in advance. So I just went to some little guy who had like 25 tiny, what were they called, smart cars. And for $25 a day, I got a car when all of Sicily was out of cars. So you can also find those kind of little guys, no problem. I would, however, I like to take chances. So when you're traveling with a family, you don't want to be caught out without a car of some sort. But I would say that also, just if you're staying in one place and you want to get a rental car just for the day, you might want to check if there's somebody local like that. As for the low cost places that you would find online through rental cars or whatever, I avoid them like the plague. You get what you pay for. I've had very bad experiences with Firefly. I would never recommend them in 1,000 years. Some of those low cost places do not give you all the charges as the big companies do. So when you buy a car, you rent a car for €100 with Hertz or Avis or Maggiore or National, that's what you're paying. That's it, unless you buy the insurance. And those low cost companies will say 100, and then you, after 3 hours in line, you go to pick up your car and they say, no, you must take out the insurance, and that's another 600. So I just avoid all of that. I go with the big names, or when I'm in some strange space or place and maybe want to just rent a car from Guido up the road, that's what I'll do. So I think that pretty much has covered everything that I ever knew and everything that you've ever wanted to know about renting cars in Italy. And if you are driving around Italy, please check out on dolcevia.com. I will put the link on the page. Check out our Ligurian itinerary. It leads you from France. Just don't bring your car over there. From the border of France all the way down the Ligurian coast to see some of the most spectacular places and find out all of our restaurant picks and so on. So it's called Slow Travel Guide from Dolce Via. All right. Arrivederci and buon viaggio.